already see right now, right there, we are talking about Sergio Perez and Liam Lawson. And one person that we definitely will mention in here is Carlos Slim. Listen, I don't care what you say. You got a name like Carlos Slim, you gangster. You gangster. You ever notice that? It's different in some different communities. In some communities, if you call Slim, you probably big as hell, right? And then they call you Slim because you do some things like a slim person, or you just that gangster. Carlos Slim is like double gangster because he's not big. He is slim, but he's slim, and his name's Slim. So Carlos Slim is basically, to me, in so many ways, laid down the law, no pun intended, to Liam Lawson. And this is why I believe, along with other reasons, that we are seeing Perez be granted the seat again by Red Bull. And it's horribly funny because I can't even see certain things. YouTube is just doing what they do all the time. But at this point in time, I will say it's a bit odd. It's a bit funny, but I do understand it. Now, you know my take, my perspective on Red Bull and the driver pairing with Max Verstappen is always going to err on the side of we just need a yes man or a second driver. We are not looking to have a driver that can literally challenge, compete, press Max Verstappen. I think we've all seen it, whether people want to agree to some terms or not. Max Verstappen does not do well under pressure. Max Verstappen is not a driver who has shown us a superior ability or elite ability to drive wheel to wheel in and out of several corners. What's going on, Miss RS? I see you in the live chat. And this is something that we've seen. We've seen this several times. So when it comes to that, Carlos Slim pretty much put the smackdown, I think, on Red Bull on a financial aspect side of things. Like, listen, I'm contributing millions. And when I say millions, brother is probably up 30 M's, if I got to say so, 30, 40 M's within Red Bull money that's going in from Perez sponsors, okay? So on top of that, I think there's a small compensation in there for Perez's contract. So yeah, now we can probably understand a bit more why Red Bull have not been as cutthroat with Perez as much as they have been with previous drivers. We've seen Red Bull be very cutthroat. We know Red Bull to be very cutthroat when it comes to a driver not performing in the varsity team, because that's really what it is. You got the varsity team, you got V-Carb is the junior team. We've seen these drivers. We've seen Alex Albon fall to that fate. We've seen not Sergio Perez, but Gasly falls to that fate. We've seen this happen before. But why so not much with Perez is because I think Perez comes with a bag that surpasses any of those two drivers and maybe both of those drivers even put together. And then you also have to look, if you go through maybe the recent era of Red Bull where it is right now, Albon's not a better driver than Perez when he was at Red Bull. Gasly wasn't a better driver than Perez when he was at Red Bull. Danny Rick to a degree wasn't a better driver than Perez while he was at Red Bull with Max Verstappen when those things happened. I mean, maybe I go back and look, but I just don't think so. I don't think that may be the case. Daniel might be the closest thing to it. So even out of those four drivers, you're still talking about Perez on the top side of that spectrum when it comes to competitive drivers in the garage, but still not as competitive as we would see in other garages. There has been no driver next to Max Verstappen that would even rival what Valtteri Bottas did at Mercedes. None. No. There's no driver next to Max Verstappen that would be comparable to an Alonso. No, not. There's not even a driver, in my opinion, that would be comparable to what Carlos Sainz would be right now at this current time if he was driving next to Max Verstappen. So I still do think outside of the money, Red Bull are still practicing don't put a driver next to Perez that could press or very highly challenge him for driver championship position. He's not going to do well with it. His dad's going to cry about it. And that is what I think is the case. All right. Now, also, I already have been on record for saying this. Perez is beyond me trying to give him some type of extra consoling or extra support. I believe if you lay down with snakes, you deserve to get your ass bit. Perez has chosen time after time to lay down with snakes. Perez has also chosen time after time to ignore disrespectful comments and or quotes that have been made towards him or a group of people like him. Perez has chosen to do this likely because he feels this is the best opportunity I have to be a champion if it ever was to happen, and it's not happening. I think the Red Bull second seat has a ceiling that exactly says that. Second, yes, man, you will not be first. As long as Max Verstappen is competing at an ability within a car that we can give him that is likely the most dominant car, you will always be second. I don't think that Red Bull has a strategy. And you know what? I credit them a little bit for that because McLaren could have probably learned something from that and maybe Lando wouldn't be in the position he's in. But that's another story. I digress. Let's keep rolling forward. So I'm going to say that. And right now, Perez is 8th in the Drivers' Championship, which means Perez has not put forth enough points towards the Constructors' Championship or Red Bull wouldn't be where they are right now, 3rd. So with that being said, I did hear a little tidbit of somebody saying that they believe that, good morning, everybody in the live chat, that they believe the money compensation of $30 million plus Perez's contract, I think, is $14 million. Even though Red Bull are not footing the bid, they're getting the $30 million plus from sponsorship. I don't know the exact figure, but I do know it's in that ballpark. They're also getting, I believe, compensation, if not Perez's contract taken care of by Carlos Slim and the sponsorship. So with that being said, you're talking about 40 some odd million dollars that Red Bull is receiving by having Perez in that seat as a driver. Okay, I heard a little tidbit saying that what difference does that make if you're losing that in prize money in the Constructors' Championship? So we're going to look at this. So these are rough estimate numbers. These are not exact numbers. These are numbers that were even estimates of 2023, but I don't think a lot would change now, but it could. Okay, so let's just say first place is going to get $140 million. Let's just say, just for hypothetical, not factual stats, let's just say $140 million. Right now, Red Bull is in 3rd. Okay, so Red Bull right now is in 3rd spot right here. If that is the case, then that is a difference of $18 million from 140 to 122 when it comes to American currency. That's the difference of 18 million. If it comes to pounds, as you see it there, 106 million pounds minus the 93 million pounds, that's $13 million difference in prize money, okay? So no, and that's still not, you're still not losing. Even though you're 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, you got a loss or you're minus 13 to 18 million. You're not getting 13 to 18 million more dollars in prize money. Still, you're talking about Sergio Perez's contract pretty much being taken up. And even if you take that out of the equation, you're talking about $30 million from sponsorship. That's half of that. So you're still making out. And this prize money is not money that they had and then they're just having to give it back, or that they accumulated and now they have to pay it out. That is not the case. This is the case of we just didn't get as much out of the pot as we would have liked to, but still the compensation for Sergio Perez, the sponsorship from Sergio Perez is still highly valuable for us to have one of the 2 reasons to keep him seated in there until something happens at a magnitude where we can't ignore it. And those things that could happen at a magnitude that they can't ignore it would be Sergio Perez running up the cost cap, to then incur penalties because they had to breach the cost cap. And then now we got to look at your performance has not contributed toward the Constructors Championship. Now you're costing us money in the cost cap, and now we're having to pay penalties because we've breached the cost cap. What's up, Galacticus, in the live chat? So that is the situation. Are Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull? So then let's look at Yuki. Okay, let's talk about Yuki. Let's talk about Liam Lawson because they are performing. And I honestly think Liam is, and this is why I say, even with what's going on, the bigger part now is the money, because I do think Red Bull feel that Liam Lawson has a ceiling or capabilities or talent that is untapped. And they do probably right now say to themselves, we think he could probably be a better driver for our varsity team than Perez is. But the problem with Liam Lawson is money. Right now, even though we like you, and even though this guy is doing one hell of a bad job, can we afford to lose that money while we are not performing our best as a team? Let's not forget, it's not only Perez that is underperforming, right? It's not only Perez. Other teams are out developing Red Bull, and other teams meaning McLaren for sure, Ferrari, they're in the mix now. Mercedes, hell no. But that's still, and we lost Adrian Newey. Okay, so are we at a point right now that we need to lose a butt ton of money? We lost Adrian Newey. Christian Horner can't keep his hands to himself. Max Verstappen needs a car that's perfectly dialed in, and he doesn't need competition to be the best him. And now we're going to go into another season. Other teams are catching up. Is this a time where we want to say, hey, we got to get rid of Perez and lose damn near $40 million? No, I don't think so. So I think that is the roadblock for Yuki. That is the roadblock for Liam Lawson. Now, I don't know how much money Yuki can generate through sponsorship from his, Honda is a big dog. So I'm not saying that he can't. I'm saying, are they willing to pay that? And even then, has Yuki shown them something to say, in a Red Bull car, you're probably a top 5 driver? Because that's what they would need to make it make sense. Because right now, Perez is 8th in the Drivers' Championship standings. He's 8th. And that in itself is an indictment on Perez at this point. I can't, he can't keep his hands to himself. I'm telling you, Christian Horner just out here. I'm going to say that for another chat. I just happened to see that with the emojis. I had to bring that up. But I'm just going to say that Perez he's not performing well, and he's not doing what he's supposed to do in that seat. And so Yuki and Liam you need them to be a top 5 driver. And I'm not sure right now. I like Yuki. I root for Yuki. But I need to see Yuki when this testing happens. And I need Red Bull. I need you to give Yuki a real opportunity to show you what he could do in this car. Now, I will say this. Testing sometimes don't mean crap. Because do y'all remember when Danny Rick got the opportunity to test in the RB, and everybody was making waves like, oh my gosh, he was like a 10th or so off of Max Verstappen's time. Danny Rick needs to be in that seat. Where is Danny Rick now? He making videos traveling around like he on the Food Network channel, tasting and doing all this other stuff. That's where he is. That's where he belongs. But before then, there were a lot of people saying that Danny Rick, after that test, needed to be in the Red Bull seat next to Max Verstappen, and he proved he couldn't even hang with Yuki. So the test might not show us as much. We need, and Yuki, giving all credit to Yuki for what he's done in the car, what he's done in AlphaTauri. He's weathered the time. He's weathered drivers coming in, drivers going out. He's weathered the media. He's weathered pundits telling him and saying that everybody that comes in after him is better than him, and Yuki's still here and they're gone. So Yuki is definitely somebody I think they should give an opportunity. But I'm going to say this. If Yuki gets that opportunity and he doesn't do better than Perez, is it all worth it? And I'm also going to say this, and I said this when Liam was getting in that seat and he finally got it. if we see Liam Lawson outscore Yuki by the end of the season, that's not a good situation for Yuki. Okay, that automatically will just dismiss the Yuki campaign at that point in time. You can't have a driver come in with several races not in their bag and then come in here and then outscore you with less time in a season than you in the same car and team as you. That's not going to do well for your campaign of getting to that Red Bull seat. That right there will have Liam Lawson circumvent you and go right straight past that, past jail, past all the utilities, go straight to go collect $200 in the RB, 21 seat? Galactus says they need to put some respect on Yuki. He is solid. He is solid, and Yuki does need the respect, and Yuki deserves respect. I was campaigning for Yuki to get respect when they was paying my bro $750,000 instead of a meal check when I was looking at Latifi and them get $1 million. Like, Yuki needed that extra pay. That's what he need. You know what I'm talking about? That all that other stuff they be talking about is crazy. But Yuki does need an opportunity. I just want him to get a real opportunity to see what he can really do. So I would say, can it not be a situation that when we get into in-season testing, even in the first race, because they got this ability, these are not really two separate teams. These are the same teams wearing different colors in 4 cars with 4 drivers. And just like I always said, when Helmut Marko made the very idiotic quote that Max Verstappen could take an AlphaTauri or Haas to pole, you clearly had the opportunity while Max was way ahead in championship points and had the championship in the bag when he shitted on Perez in Brazil. You could have put Max for qualifying in an AlphaTauri and let him finish out the AlphaTauri in the weekend. I'm pretty sure I don't know if there are any rules against that, but I don't think so. I mean, you changed the drivers any other time, you could have swapped him out for the rest of the season. He had the championship already won. It was a done deal, but you're not going to do that because he can't do that. And we already saw that was not the case because he can't even do it now. We just watched him not win several races. We just watched him not get pole position in a Red Bull car, and that's way better than an AlphaTauri or a V-Carb. That's way better than a Haas, and it's way better than several other cars on the grid outside of McLaren. And Ferrari is just kind of there. So Red Bull's still the second best team with a car that's highly competitive. So I don't want to hear any of this Max Verstappen winning with a less car on that. But yes, if I were going to give somebody an opportunity, I need to wait to the end of the season and see what they do. Perez is going to be in that seat because he can afford to be there, and Carlos Slim is going to put the big bag behind him. Red Bull, to me, right now, are not in an extreme position logistically to just say, to hell with your bag, to hell with your $40-30 million. We don't need it. We're going to do without that, bring a driver in that has better talent but comes with less money, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. No, they're not going to do that. They didn't do that. And I'm going to also tell you, Perez is a yes man, and they need a yes man next to Max Verstappen. Liam Lawson does think about it, he does not care about varsity drivers. He does not care about senior drivers. Perez went on this whole thing. He needs to be respectful. Why? I mean, outside of being cordial, why does he need to be respectful? And it's because of this hierarchy that Red Bull have built between a junior team and senior team, where Perez feels like Liam Lawson needs to respect senior drivers. Liam Lawson needs to mind his place. Liam Lawson needs to let me by. Liam Lawson needs to do, no, he doesn't need to do any of that. And I'm not even sure he's going to do that with Max Verstappen. I'm not even sure. And I don't think that they're sure that Liam Lawson would do that next to Max Verstappen. I think he's going to take his opportunity. I could be wrong because history proves and says that I'm not correct. But at some point in time, there's got to be a guy with a certain personality and character that says, I don't give a damn about your golden boy. I care about winning. And you better give me the car to win, or else I'm going to put you on blast, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a driver to put Red Bull on blast. Yeah, y'all know they mess with my setup. And don't forget, another reason why I can't give Perez a bunch of leeway, Perez, they gave you a new chassis, bro. They gave you a new chassis to boost your confidence pretty much, because I don't think it was anything wrong with the chassis. And you still did dog doo-doo. You still did dog duty, bro. So I'm just saying, like, Perez, you getting your opportunity. And lightweight, as much as I don't really care for Christian Horner, I think he's been in your corner a little bit more than Helmut Marko for sure. I think he has. And maybe it's by a byproduct of their beef about who's running this or not. I'm just saying, He's been a bit in your corner, and you still have done nothing. So while Perez has not managed to adjust himself to be a better performing driver, we did see in earlier parts of the season when the car was more of an understeer variation of itself, Perez did far better, and he was rivaling Max. Then they did what they do, and here we go, more pointy car, more, now we're like, okay, it matters, but Perez, can you adapt? And if Perez doesn't want to adapt, then why stay with a team that you can't win with? If it's me and Red Bull is shitting on me, I'm taking my money. Who is not going to take Perez outside of Ferrari and Mercedes? Who's not going to take Perez outside of Ferrari and Mercedes? Aston Martin might have even been a peep, depending if he's available, maybe. But outside of that, you don't go to Alpine, you ain't got a chance there, but you don't think, some of the other teams, you don't think these other teams will take him? You don't think, even if we say Alpine, you don't think Alpine will take him? Yes, they'll take him. You don't think Haas will take him with that money bag that he bring coming in? Yeah, I think they'll take him. You don't think Williams would have considered taking him with that money bag and the personality that Perez has? Because Perez is not a bad guy. Yeah, they'll take him. Perez is not going to be out of Formula One with a bag like that. And it's not like he's the worst driver out there. I mean, it just doesn't say a lot about him performing the way he's performing with the so-called varsity team of Red Bull. But Perez is still a decent driver. He's still a good driver in the right circumstances, just like most of these drivers. So, no, I'm not going to say that. Matter of fact, I'm going to bring the list up. To me, he's a better driver than Gasly. He's a better driver than Gasly. All right. I think, honestly, he's a better driver. To me, I might even put him right next to Alonso. We put them both in the same car, although Alonso's a two-time champion. Nothing to say that Perez might not have been there, depending on where he might have been. But I'm just saying, Alonso, I'll put him a little bit ahead. He's a better driver than Hulkenberg. He is. To me, he might be a better driver than Yuki, but Yuki still got some time to show that. He's a better driver than Gasly. He's a better driver than Ocon. He's damn sure a better driver than Stroll. He's a better driver than K-Mag for sure, out of this world. He's a better driver than Danny Rick. He's a better driver right now than most of the drivers on the grid. He's a better driver than Joe. Just saying. All right, so there's several places where I'm pretty sure if Perez will become available with that amount of sponsorship dollars, that somebody will give him an opportunity in Formula One at some point in time. It's not going to be like he's out of Formula One. I just don't see that. So it's a money-driven game. It's an elitist type environment. They cater to millions and billionaires, and every now and then we get to get in with these seats and see the race. But I know we really support Formula One, honestly, but there's a lot of money going around that paddock. I'm just keeping it a buck with you. There's a lot of money in Paddock Club. There's a lot of money in the paddock itself. That's a lot of money. I'm keeping it a buck with you. You're talking about $10,000, $20,000, depending on the type of experience and the past that you have for one race a weekend. 20 bands. That's a lot of money for one person. That's a lot of cash. That's a lot of cash. So, yeah, Perez brings the bag. Perez also brings a bag of ass when it comes to competing, but we'll see. But this is the turning of the tide, and I said this several months ago. This is the turning of the tide where we are going to see the new era of Formula One drivers starting to come into play, and that is what we're seeing, the new era of Formula One drivers starting to come into play. So just keep that in mind. Eventually, all of this shit's going to happen. Eventually, everything's going to come around. But I think if they give Perez the car that he's comfortable with, I think we see Perez perform way better. I don't think Perez performs well with this type of car setup, and I don't see a reason why a team can't do that, because essentially you're doing less to Perez's car in order for him to be the best version of him and probably beat out other drivers from other teams, because he can now drive at his top level of performance. So I'm not out on Perez until I see them do that. I'm not out on him for that. Not at all. And while there are 20 drivers on the grid and he's still 8th, that still tells me he's better than 12 other drivers on the grid right now. So I'm still not out completely on Perez being a Formula One driver at all. So listen, that's it. Liam Lawson should be in, could be in, but damn well should Yuki, but the bag's not big enough, and Red Bull probably won't do it right now. So Perez is in here for 2025 unless we see something catastrophic happen which you could, because you know contracts are on paper and paper's made to be ripped up. So with that being said, Jay from Wolfpack, I'm out. Peace.